I think the king right now, his best bet would be to distance himself completely, make it clear to Harry that the Sussexes are not welcome at all in Britain for a very, very long time.
Harry has lost a gigantic privacy case against the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. A good day for them, a good day for journalism, a great day for press freedom, and a very bad day for ginger, whining, treacherous little weasels.
That's ridiculous. I mean, what is wrong with this guy? He styles himself as the courageous David taking on the evil dragon of the media, of those awful newspapers. And I'll tell you what he and all his celebrity chums think. They think that because they hate newspapers so much, they can say what the hell they like about newspapers like the Mail, and they don't have to prove it. They discovered they do have to prove it. They had no evidence for this. Harry has been utterly humiliated today, and he deserved.
The verdict came down today for Prince Harry's court case against the Daily Mail, and he has been officially deemed, in fact, all of him and his co-claimants, there are 7 among them, were determined to be losers scenario, and this could not be more of a disaster for Prince Harry, especially as he begins his week-long series of engagements in the UK.
£50 million. That is the bill now hanging over Prince Harry after a High Court judge threw out every last claim in his case against the Daily Mail on the 7th of July. And according to Tom Bower, he is not insured for a penny of it.
He's not covered by the insurance for such a huge amount. So he is now going to be pursued, and that is a problem for him.
Bower did not call this a setback. He called it the beginning of the end.
Prince Harry is done. Can you expand on that?
He's tarnished by losing a case which has cost them at least £50 million in costs. For Harry now, it's downhill.
The afternoon, in his words, that the pristine victim story the Sussexes have sold for 5 years finally cracked in open court.
It does seem like chaos continues to follow him, and I think we've seen him trying to rebuild his brand over the last 6 to 12 months between Ukraine, the letter he wrote in the New Statesman regarding anti-Semitism in the UK. He wants to be taken as a serious character, and then a week like this happens, and he loses all authority, all credibility, and a judge says, I didn't trust your testimony, and that wreaks havoc on that.
Now Bower has been writing about powerful people falling for 40 years. He wrote the book on this couple, quite literally. So when he sits across from Kinsey Schofield the very day the verdict lands and says the decline has begun, that is not a man reaching for a headline. That is a man who has watched them longer and colder than almost anybody alive.
And these two delusional narcissists, every 6 to 18 months or so, decide they need another dose of adoration or just attention. They'll take it either way. And thanks to the king's love for his son, which I understand, they continue to get it. So I agree with you. The royal title should be pulled, and we should stop engaging in the fiction that they have any love for King Charles. They don't. They only have love for themselves.
Correct.
Here's the sentence he actually used. We are now edging towards the chapters of the decline. He said, because the pristineness has gone. The pristineness has gone. Sit with that. This video is not about the loss. You already know he lost. This is about what the loss detonates. A bill nobody can pay.
This is a guy that had the world at his fingertips and threw it all away, his wife's Hollywood dream, after she failed in the industry because she was a bad actress. Anybody watching her shows can tell. She's a really crappy actress. Not only did he leave, he basically threw a steaming pile of doggy doo-doo on Charles's palace doorstep and then proceeded to try to light the rest of the house on fire. And that failed.
A whisper going round the palace that William finally has his ammunition. A door in Buckingham Palace that quietly clicked shut. And one prediction where Bower breaks ranks with every other commentator in Britain, the one about the marriage, that I promise is worth staying for. But the question Bower leaves hanging is the one Montecito cannot answer. When the money is gone and the titles are on the table, who is left to save them? Let us walk through it.
But he never believed it. I did, because I was working at the Mail at that time, and we weren't allowed to do anything wrong there. And we were, very, very looked over. But Harry had to do it. And I just saw something I read before, which was that his wife absolutely hated the Mail. Has to do everything that Meghan wants. He tries his best, but this is ridiculous. And he's going to owe £50 million.
The judge in this case, a man called Matthew Nick, who dismissed Harry's case against the Mail on Sunday, the negotiations at Sandringham protection, and said that Harry had lied in his statement in that. So he had form of not being, so to speak, enthralled to the royal family. Now, Harry has lost now 2 cases in front of Nick. He's not going to risk a third.
Start with the thing the headlines skated straight past. This was not Harry's first defeat in that building. Bower was quick to point it out, and he said it with the flat certainty of a man reading a scoreboard. Harry has now lost twice in front of the same judge. Twice. And the read Bower draws from that is brutal. What the establishment is really saying, in his words, is that they cannot deal with this man, that they do not trust the 5th in line to the throne.
What you described about Buckingham Palace's detailed breakdown is actually a matter of a breakdown of trust. Point about Harry was, can we trust him? And because of all the briefing and the reversals and all the somersaults, what they're really saying is, we cannot deal with this. We don't trust Sessions.
That is Bower's interpretation, delivered without a flicker of doubt. Now, the court did not brand Harry a liar. The judge threw the case out because it leaned on suspicion instead of hard proof, and it actually accepted a good deal of Harry's own evidence. That is the record, and it matters. But Bower goes further than the judgment does, and he goes there on purpose. He believes Harry walked into that courtroom convinced the world would simply take his word and walked out having learned the world wants receipts. Katie Nicholl, who sat on the Piers Morgan panel and whose own journalism was dragged through this case, put the cold arithmetic on it. The only winners here, she said, were the lawyers. Harry is a loser in every respect.
There's always a winner in these court cases, and it's nearly always the barristers involved, isn't it? We understand that Prince Harry and others who brought this case, they're being basically funded by insurance that's covering their case. So a lot of these insurance companies have, in the past, well, not in this case.
And the Mail did not accept the win quietly. Paul Dacre, the paper's chairman, called it a momentous victory, and Harry a confused and angry young man.
There isn't a laundry in the cosmos to wash all the dirty linen he has aired about his own family.
I mean, Harry just gave him a playbook. The Daily Mail just wants to throw the book at him, and I understand why.
For him to complain about his privacy being invaded takes not just the biscuit, but the whole tin. Poor Harry. I feel sorry for the way a confused and angry young man has been drawn into this case.
There isn't a laundry in the cosmos, he said, big enough to wash all the dirty linen Harry has aired about his own family. For a man to complain about his privacy being invaded, Dacre added, takes not just the biscuit, but the whole tin. That is the tone on the winning side, pure contempt, start to finish. And that is the quiet horror of this for the Sussexes. Their entire brand, the thing they sell out of Montecito, is the wounded prince telling his truth. Bower's point is simple and devastating. Once a court has waved that truth away, the victim's story stops paying its rent. The wound was the product. And the product just lost its warranty, which drags us to the bill, because the bill is where this stops being embarrassing and starts being something closer to existential.
There was no evidence to support a single one of the 57 claims, 14 of which were Harry's. And what does he do straight after? Instead of taking it on the chin, instead of saying, okay, what he does, he comes out, he goes, the judge is biased. It's an establishment stitch-up. I've been wronged. Does he know how foolish and deranged he sounds when he says stuff like this?
After the case was argued over several weeks, the costs are now estimated at an overall £50 million. So there could be £22 million outstanding that are not covered by insurance. And there are potential damages to consider. That will be a hearing that is conducted between July 29th and July 30th.
Here's the number that should be keeping the accountants in California awake at night, around £50 million. That is the figure being thrown around for the combined cost of this marathon of a case. And the side that loses a case like this is usually the side that ends up paying. There is a hearing at the end of July where a judge decides exactly who hands over what. This is not a vague someday. It has a date in the diary. Bower did not soften a word of it. Harry, he said, is not covered by insurance for a sum that size. And he is now going to be pursued by the Mail for their money. The gray men Harry spent years despising, in Bower's phrase, are the very men who now hold his fate in their hands.
I don't think he has good advisors around him, or really many advisors. I know he's got one, Liam Maguire. I think most of the rest of them have left him. And of course, he doesn't have the Royal Palace machinery around him. The one that he hates so much, those people, those men in grey suits that he rails against, are actually the people that protected him for many years and gave him good advice. And he doesn't have that around him. And I do think Meghan's way is to whip him up a bit more and make him more paranoid.
And he is powerless to move them. Charlotte Griffiths, the Mail on Sunday journalist who actually beat him, was even blunter about the state of his wallet. She does not think Harry has any money at the moment, she said flatly. She has heard he is scrambling to drum up another Netflix series because he has lost the contract he had. Everything, in her words, is a dumpster fire.
This could cost Harry a lot of money, couldn't it?
Well, there's £40 million on the table. Apparently each individual, I'm not clear on this yet, but apparently each individual is liable for $2 million. And there's a bit of a discrepancy about the insurance and whether, because they do have some sort of insurance policy, and whether or not that will pay out in the end. Who will cover those costs? Will Elton John in the end pay for the whole lot? I don't know if Harry has any money. If he does, is it the last of his mother's inheritance?
It's certainly, however many millions, and we're hearing figures, as you say, maybe that ballpark figure of 2 million. I'm also hearing I spoke to a top lawyer earlier, could be up to $10 million. If any number of millions is money Harry hasn't got.
I don't think Harry has any money at the moment. I really don't. I've heard that he's trying to drum up another Netflix series of some kind. I know he's lost his contract with them, but he needs to find some cash from somewhere, especially now, today of all days.
Over on the Daily Express, Carol Malone did the sums out loud for anyone still hoping this blows over. The case cost a fortune. The Mail want their costs back, and Harry and the others are going to have to hand over a great big chunk of it. God knows, she said, how many millions they are going to have to fork out now.
Is it money? He's lost this case.
Oh, God, of
He's
course.
now in the hole.
Of course.
Their Netflix cash is running out.
Yes.
Spotify run for the hills.
Yeah.
Are
All
they,
of
are they
that
on the brink of
matters.
bankruptcy?
So, God knows how many millions they're going to have to fork out now for this court case.
So picture the machine that funds the Sussex life, the Netflix money, thinner than the headline suggested. Spotify, long gone. The book, a one-off, and now a legal bill with more zeros than most people's houses, landing in the same month the victim brand collapsed. That is not a rough patch. That is water coming through the floorboards. And it is only the first domino. The second one is the one the palace has been waiting 5 years to push.
I'm struggling to find a good news story for Harry at the moment. I mean, I think this is a huge setback, not just financially, but reputationally as well. And to be in London to receive the bad news, he can't hide in the Montecito mansion. The timing couldn't be worse. And this is in the background of having lost control of Sentebale, African Parks. He's still on the board of that charity. They're mired in allegations of abuse of African tribes. Yikes.
Yeah.
Then there's the Archwell Foundations or Philanthropies or whatever it's called this week, which has effectively been shuttered.
Yep.
Then there's Invictus, which is losing sponsors left and right. Why is there such a pattern? I mean, do you know, I've sort of laid it out there, really. It's a gift for a critic of Harry. If you just look at all the different projects, everything's a dumpster fire.
Prince William now has got even more ammunition to say to his father, enough's enough. Let us get rid of this family. Let us even strip them of their titles, just in the same way as Andrew did.
This is the part of Bower's analysis that made me put my tea down. He believes this defeat has handed Prince William something he has quietly wanted for a long time, ammunition. In Bower's words, William now has even more reason to go to his father and say, enough is enough. Let us get rid of this. Let us even strip them of their titles. Just the same way it was done with Andrew. Just the same way as Andrew. Read that line twice, because Bower chose it on purpose.
Should the title, we've seen with Andrew, you can remove the title. It can be done. This idea before was, well, you can't do it. Well, actually, you can. We literally just did it. And Andrew's not been convicted. Andrew's not been convicted of any crime, right? But he's lost everything, and he fends for himself now. Why don't we just do that with these two?
He is drawing a straight line from the Duke, who was quietly stripped of his working role and his honors to the Duke sitting in Montecito right now, wondering how 1 week went so catastrophically wrong. Is it happening tomorrow? No. And Bower is careful about that. This is his reading of the mood inside the walls, not a decree posted on the palace gates. But this is a man with decades of sources in that world, and he is telling you the conversation has changed. The loss cost Harry more than money. It cost him the last scrap of power he held over his own family. For years, the threat was always what Harry might say next, what he might put in the next book, the next documentary, the next sit-down. A man a court has just contradicted is a man whose next revelation carries a little less menace. Bower's phrase for what Harry has done to himself is almost clinical. He is self-slain, Bower said. He has committed a kind of reputational sin, And let us put it no milder than that.
Now, on the other side of the fence, he is now the person who is the liar. He is now the person, is the perpetrator, and they're a victim of slaying the dragons. He's self-slain. It's a reputational.
Right.
And he is now going to find a way himself.
When the man who wrote your biography starts using the words about your career, the obituary is already being typed. And Bower's advice to the king was cold enough to frost the windows. The best thing Charles could do, he said, is distance himself completely. Make it plain the Sussexes are not welcome in Britain for a very, very long time. The quicker they leave, Bower added, the better.
I think the king and the monarchy has been hugely damaged by this case and by Harry's conduct. I think the judge who gave him a very sharp punch on the nose, followed by the king giving him a slap in the face by not having him at Buckingham Palace, because he realized that Harry actually, throughout the last 5 years, whether it's an accusation or all the stuff in his autobiography about the royal family and Kate and Camilla and all that, of course it's been hugely damaging. And the popularity of the royal family has fallen because of Meghan and Harry's aunt. I think the king right now, his best bet would be to distance himself completely, make it clear to Harry that the Sussexes are not welcome for a very, very long time.
The only open question is whether they go quietly or whether they scream all the way to the airport to squeeze a little more money out of the family on the way out. That is a biographer talking about a serving prince the way a landlord talks about a tenant who has stopped paying. And that alone tells you how far the ground has moved under Harry's feet.
You have to remember that the king is 77. He's living with cancer.
Yeah.
He wants to be reconciled with his estranged son, and he wants to see his grandchildren. He does not extend this rift between the united royal family. He is trying his best. I think William would be far more severe when it came to the Sussexes, and I suspect when...
We still don't know where he's staying. King obviously is lost. He can't stay at Buckingham Palace anymore. And if you don't bring your grandkids for me to see, I don't want to see you.
Now layer the timing on top, because the timing is almost cruel. Harry came back to Britain this month with a plan. The story doing the rounds before he even landed was that this trip might thaw things. A reunion, a grandfather and his son in the same room at last, with the king unwell and time not on anybody's side. That was the hope the Sussex camp let float. Instead, the week became a masterclass in doors closing. There was the shambles over where he would even stay, an offer of a room on royal property that came and went before he could pin it down.
Harry formally declined that invitation on Saturday morning. Then later on in the day, Buckingham Palace says, he changed his mind and said, no, I am going to stay in Buckingham Palace, thank you very much. Then Buckingham Palace wrote back saying it's too late because logistically it's quite hard to get all the staffing in place, get all the, they said hosting or the hospitality, I think they mean food and drink and things, ready for his arrival and a couple of other logistical things.
And Bower's read is that Charles will now be deeply wary of getting anywhere near his son. He will say, in Bower's blunt paraphrase, that he simply has not got the space in the diary.
This was a royal aide, said that the king's patience snapped, to be fair. He said he wants to be a loving father and grandfather, but that was being tested beyond endurance. He was not willing to be pushed around a constant state of...
no room in the diary. What a thing to say about your own child. But that is the register now. The palace voices talking to Katie Nicholl went further on the bigger question, the one that actually matters. Is Harry ever coming back as a working royal? For the record, she said, no, it is not going to happen. And the reason she gave was not the king at all. It was William. Those bridges, she said, are well and truly burned.
Is he going to come back as a working royal? Will there be engagements? Simply isn't going to happen. And there's a major reason for that. It's not going to happen. The Prince of Wales is not going to say, well, all is forgiven. Come back, Harry. Do you know what? We're a bit thin on the ground right now. Come back and help us out with some engagements. Absolutely not. Those bridges have been well and truly burned.
So look at the board. A father, ill and cautious, keeping his distance and blaming the diary.
Do you think that Prince Harry's now, he may or may not see the king's not going to get to see his grandchildren that he barely knows, he wouldn't even know what he looked like, he wouldn't know what they look like. Do you think he's just going to slink back to California once again with his tail between his legs?
Well, he's eventually going to slink back to California and lick his wounds. And everybody, you mentioned just now about reconciliation with his dad and his his dad seeing his grandchildren. Everybody's forgotten about the other side of the family. Thomas Markle hasn't even met his grandson, let alone his son-in-law, let alone his grandchild. So there's reconciliation on both sides. Unfortunately, it's not that easy over here, because every time Harry says something or there's a meeting with his dad, the door hits him in the shoulder.
A brother by every account bolted shut, and a defeat in open court that hands both of them the perfect reason to keep the drawbridge up and the moat filled. Harry flew home chasing a reconciliation. What he got was the clearest signal yet that the family has finally run out of patience. And the one thing he built his whole second act on, the charity that was meant to float serenely above all of this, was caught in the blast too.
This has been a mess of his own making. I've many times over the years, I have felt sympathy for Harry. And on a human level, I would very much like this reconciliation to happen for the king, because I think life is short. He's going through cancer. He wants to see his grandchildren and he can't. And yet you feel he has done everything. He has been magnanimous in terms of showing forgiveness, in terms of making it possible. And yet Harry has somehow managed to mess it all up. And it's astonishing.
Within a few short hours, Harry had been accused of causing the king's patience to snap, and he lost what is ultimately a £50 million court case. For many years, you know, we respected Harry as Captain Harry Whale, okay, when he served in the army. Surely now is this chaos and drama that we are seeing just in a few short hours of you arriving, all the drama, the noise, is that just what to expect? Is that just part of the deal? Harry comes to these shores.
Because here's the part that genuinely stings, even for those of us with no love left for the Sussexes. This was supposed to be Invictus Week. The entire reason for the trip was the countdown to the games arriving in Birmingham next year. It should have been Harry's proudest lap. The one thing even Bower admits is a genuinely good cause that nobody sensible disputes. Instead, the noise swallowed it whole. The court case, the security row, the accommodation circus, every headline that should have belonged to wounded veterans went to a wounded prince instead. The Sun's Kate Mansi had the cruelest line for it. Harry and Andrew, she said, were known around the palace as the Dukes of Hazzard because chaos followed both of them wherever they went.
It was Dukes of Hazzard. That's the name that they had for Andrew and Harry because chaos followed both of them. And they were the two problems that were pointed out to me by courtiers as, you know, big kind of hurdles for the king during his reign and big kind of alarm signals flash every time their names were mentioned.
Captain Harry Wales, once a genuinely respected soldier, has quietly become Captain Chaos. And the timing could hardly be worse. Birmingham is meant to host these games in 2027, and this month was supposed to be the triumphant year to go lap. The noise he brings, Mansi said, drowns out every single word he wants to say about Invictus. Bower raised the question the sponsors are surely asking behind closed doors. Will the corporate money stay on board? Will the big names want their logos sitting next to a man who spent his week being handed a defeat in the king's own court? His answer, obviously, was no.
The thing about Invictus is it gets government money. The question is whether Boeing and the other corporate sponsors stay on board. Suspicion is, weigh it up, consider it very carefully. On the one hand, they want to rightly support wounded soldiers. And on the other hand, do they want to be associated with Harry? The latter, obviously not. So I think everyone is now pausing to wait to see. The gunfire has gone off.
Kinsey Schofield has been pointing at the shape of this for a while. She keeps circling back to what happened with Centibally, Harry's earlier charity, where the story goes that the toxic branding drove the fundraising into the ground and the backers walked. Audi among them.
I have heard that months ago, leadership was stressed about Meghan's involvement. Looking at the circus that this trip has become, I guarantee you that there are conversations happening behind the scenes about how frustrating these two, so read Betrayal, which I know you have, front to back. Tom Bower goes into great detail about how detrimental Harry and Meghan's presence was to Centibale, their toxic brand.
And she says she is watching the same pattern form around Invictus. The whisper, she says, is that the leadership is already frustrated, already worried it is curdling into a circus. One thing, though, because it matters, Invictus is not canceled. The games are still coming to Birmingham. The doom around the sponsors is coming from critics and from Bower's own book, not from any official announcement. But when the founder becomes a bigger story than the cause he founded, that is a crack. And cracks in this family's year have a way of widening into canyons.
Do you know, if I was PR for either Invictus, World Child or Scottish Little Soldiers, I would be pretty annoyed that at the start of this week, the whole thing is being overshadowed by not only a security row, but now even where he's lying down and putting his head at night. It just seems to, if I was them, I'd think it would be really, really upsetting, actually, that the whole thing is being overshadowed. If I was Prince Harry, I'd look at myself and think, you look at the opinion polls of the British public's opinion of members of the royal family. Harry and Meghan are at the bottom, apart from Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor.
If we were to hypothetically imagine that Meghan Markle was really coming, my thought process was she will absolutely be by Harry's side on Friday. He wins, but he's lost now. I don't think she wants to be on the arm of a loser. And what does Meghan Markle do when Harry's going through difficult times publicly? She disappears. When you think about how Jimmy Kimmel was tearing into him over Spare, and he's trying to promote, where's Meghan when he's promoting Spare? She disappears. Where was Meghan when he lost his rabbit case, when he sat down and was reaming the royal family to the BBC? Meghan mysteriously disappears. When Harry is going through difficult times, Meghan is MIA. She's nowhere to be found.
And now the twist I promised you at the top. The one place Tom Bower stands completely alone. Everywhere you look this week, the commentators are reaching for the same word: divorce. The clock is ticking, they say. Meghan stayed 5,000 miles away in California while her husband took his beating in a London court. And half the internet read that empty chair beside him as the beginning of the end of the marriage.
A ritual humiliation. I mean, I read from the Daily Telegraph inside the Chatham House event, and they just said Harry totally broken. Like, he obviously had to go up and deliver the speech. I saw you on GB News. Meghan was not there, and you think it was...
I think it's significant. When I first got wind of the fact that Meghan wasn't coming to London and was possibly coming to the UK, but not the London part, I thought, well, maybe the case is going to go our way, because trust me, if he'd won, she would have been standing by his side, saying, well done, we slayed another dragon.
Bower does not buy it, never has. Asked point blank whether the marriage survives, he did not pause for a breath. Yes, he said, because they need each other. He has never believed the divorce story, and he does not believe it now.
Is this marriage going to survive?
Yes, because they need each other. I've never believed the divorce story, but the whole point about this bringing them back is no one trusts them.
But do not mistake that for a happy ending, because Bower's version is bleaker than any split. His word for where they are now was survival, not love, not partnership. Survival. Two people, in his telling, welded together by need, cornered, no longer trusted by anyone, working out how to make money from a royal connection the country has turned against.
He and Meghan now, in my view, have reached the end of a chapter. They're now into a serious problem of survival. Because they've been judged to be unreliable, untrustworthy by the king and by the judge. And what are they going to do for their income from now on? They're not going to trash the family
Katie,
even more.
look, it's a really interesting question, because it is a law of diminishing returns, right? They've realised the more they trash the family, the more...
And here is where I land after watching every minute of this. The other channels are selling you a divorce because a divorce is a tidy story with a countdown clock. Bower is selling you something worse and truer. A marriage that cannot end because neither one can afford to walk away from the other. A £50 million bill with a hearing date. A brother with his ammunition loaded. A father with no room in his diary. And a victim story a judge just quietly filed in the bin. The wheels have not simply come off the Sussex carriage. They are rolling down the hill towards Montecito. And there is nobody left in Britain willing to run after them. That is the beginning of the end, in the words of the one man who has watched them longest. Not my phrase, his.
Is Meghan the cause for all of this? As you watch Prince Harry blow up in front of the world, is Meghan to blame? Is she the instigator? Is she the bad influence?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Meghan is a source of evil. Many years ago, and it didn't make me popular with some, because she only thinks of herself. She is only focused on self-promotion, profits for her, doesn't care who gets damaged, and has behaved disgracefully, and has never made amends. And that is a problem, and has used Harry and abused the royal family. And I think that is really where, in that whole phrase, she's brainwashed Harry. She's now going to get it back in spades.
So I want to hear from you. Is Bower right that this is the real decline, the point of no return? Or is he wrong, and Harry claws his way back one more time, the way he somehow always seems to? Drop your verdict in the comments. I read every single one. Hit the like button if you want the follow-up. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who care about these stories. And subscribe, because there is a lot more coming this week. The cost hearing at the end of July is the next domino to fall. And when it does, we will be right here to break down exactly what it means for Harry's money and his titles. You will want to be in the room for that one.